The federal authorities just pulled the rug out from under every major Epstein conspiracy theory. Having tracked every update regarding this dark saga, especially with the recent unsealing of records under the new Transparency Act, one massive riddle remains. Did everyone else simply walk free? It is the central mystery. Before moving forward, don't forget to like and subscribe the channel for daily updates. There's definitive proof Jeffrey was exporting young women to a network of high-status associates. Well, if we trust the Associated Press's deep dive into these archives, the Bureau's answer is a flat no. We conducted our own investigation, too. Based on the internal memos we uncovered, that claim holds up. The Bureau insists evidence is non-existent. They scrubbed bank ledgers, monitored digital correspondence, debriefed survivors, and raided every physical estate Epstein owned. Their conclusion: no trail exists of him loaning victims to outsiders. Remember, he faced federal charges for sex trafficking minors. Ghislaine Maxwell was later convicted in her specific criminal proceedings. Her sentence of 2 decades was based on the fact that she trafficked victims solely for Jeffrey's benefit. Since he passed away before his day in court, the narrative has always been that the operation was an internal circle of 2. Now, this fresh reporting from the AP highlights a Bureau claim that will stun you. 0 recordings or stills from his residences in Manhattan, the Sunshine State, or the Caribbean ever featured other men participating in these crimes. A lack of evidence isn't always a lack of guilt. Look at this specific internal message sent. To the Bureau's Deputy Director, Dan Bonino, the sender's identity is hidden, but the date is March 20th, 2025. It clarifies that federal prosecutors and field agents triple-checked every byte of data from Epstein's devices. That exhaustive audit turned up nothing to implicate a wider ring of abusers. They acknowledged the viral theories that Jeffrey was filming blackmail tapes of powerful men. However, they found 0 physical proof to validate those rumors. Indeed, they state that had such footage existed, it would have been the cornerstone of their prosecution against a much larger list of targets. They simply didn't find the tapes. During the 2019 raids in New York and the Virgin Islands, technical teams hunted for hidden lenses. My understanding is that no cameras were discovered inside the private quarters or sleeping areas. Entry points had security systems, sure, but those only stored data for a few days. By the time the 2019 warrants were executed, any relevant footage from the 1990s or early 2000s was long gone. The Bureau actually lacked the legal standing to grab 2019 surveillance. Anyway, because it wasn't relevant to the specific time frame of the crimes, they did haul away a mountain of CDs, physical prints, and one specific video containing explicit imagery. Some subjects appeared to be in their late teens. Defense lawyers saw it all during discovery. Yet, none of those files showed active abuse, and no other males were present in the frames. In many cases, the victims were alone. Because of the sensitive nature of these images, they remain under seal. The Bureau and the New York prosecutors performed a staggering review of every electronic item. Seized during the 2019 arrest, a massive task force of analysts and legal experts parsed over 1 million individual files. They used a very wide net, flagging any image featuring a woman who looked under 30. Every hit was saved and cataloged. There was an index showing exactly how many files were flagged as responsive. Interestingly, this doesn't even count his smartphone or the half-dozen iPads they cracked using specialized forensic software. Even with that level of scrutiny, they found no evidence of a third-party perpetrator. The local Palm Beach police also had their own stash of recordings from the early days interviews and house searches. The Bureau took custody of those. 2, same result: no footage of abuse, no evidence of outside participants. While they did find a small handful of illegal images on one device, it was stuff Jeffrey had pulled from the internet, not content he produced with his own victims. Now, consider this second memo from September 2019. It mentions a meeting with a specific victim whose name is blacked out. Investigators verified she was recruited by Maxwell and harmed by the duo. However, when she claimed she was lent out to other men, they couldn't find a single person to back her up. Her story was inconsistent with what other survivors reported. In fact, one person she named as being present specifically denied the event ever happened. Then there is an email from July 2025 discussing the director's call. If that director is indeed the current head of the Bureau, the details are telling. It asks how many survivors actually accused other elites. The answer? Roughly 4 or 5. But the evidence wasn't strong enough for federal charges, so those files were dumped onto local police departments. A few survivors mentioned a third woman participating in threesomes, specifically a girlfriend who was around 20 at the time. She was questioned, but they lacked the teeth to charge her. Who was she? We can guess, but I won't name names here. Then you have the 2019 list of potential co-conspirators. Take Junglook Brunel, the model scout. He was under a subpoena, but ended his own life before trial. The memo says evidence against him was limited. Same for Leslie Wexner, the retail mogul. Even though he's been linked to Jeffrey for years, the Bureau notes there is just not enough to move forward. This feels like a massive shock given how many high-profile people were in Jeffrey's orbit. We've seen the creepy emails, we've seen the flight logs, but the legal reality is frustrating. Just because you knew the man or flew on his plane doesn't mean a prosecutor can prove you committed a felony. To be fair, the feds were trying to build cases. The problem was verification. Even with Virginia Giuffre's claims against royalty like Prince Andrew, investigators flagged credibility hurdles because no other victims described being ordered to engage with outside men in that specific way. When the AP looked at the bank accounts, the money trail was cold too. There were payments to models, but nothing that screamed organized prostitution ring. And then there's the client list. This idea of a secret ledger containing every elite participant, former officials claimed it was sitting on their desks, but the Bureau issued a memo in July stating that, after a systematic review, no such incriminating client list actually exists. They found an address book. Sure, but that's just a contact list, not a log of crimes. As of late 2024, the Bureau's Unit on Human Trafficking confirmed the investigation is effectively dead. Case inactive. This is a massive development that people have waited years for. Truth often hides in the documents we aren't allowed to see. I want to dig deeper. Is this a real conclusion or a strategic silence? Is it possible that in a house full of cameras, they found nothing? Well, we have to view this through a strictly investigative lens. We are seeing conclusions, not raw data. So the real question isn't whether it's surprising, but what exactly are we allowed to look at? People will ask, how is it possible? Unless the cameras were a myth or Jeffrey was smarter than the feds, there was definitely digital contraband found. But proving a specific person did a specific act requires a very high bar. A video of a victim doesn't always show the perpetrator, of course, but the public assumption was that he had blackmail tapes. If the Bureau's review was as broad as they claim, looking at every woman under 30, they would have seen them. If they weren't found, maybe they didn't exist, or maybe they were hidden in places the feds never looked. What about the money? Financial records are usually the smoking gun. Not always. If the theory was grooming and recruitment rather than direct, cash for sex transactions, the bank statements wouldn't show the crime. You have to wonder what universe of records they actually saw. Cash and crypto are much harder to track. When Maxwell was on trial, the focus was on the network of recruitment. Now we see these memos saying limited evidence for other people. Does that mean they are innocent, or just that the feds gave up? In the criminal world, not enough evidence is a specific legal wall. It doesn't mean no evidence, it just means they can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Why isn't a victim's testimony enough? If someone says, I was trafficked to this person, why isn't that a charge? Testimony is vital, but in a he said, she said scenario, you need corroboration. Without a second witness or a physical tape, it's hard to win. To swallow, especially when the memos say no other victims reported being lent out, we are essentially looking at summaries of evidence, not the evidence itself. Exactly, we are interpreting an incomplete record with heavy redactos. Some will call this a cover-up. They'll say these memos were written specifically to be found. Later, to clear certain people, can we trust these summaries are honest? I don't have a definitive answer. That silence says everything. We are all speculating on fragments. We don't see the totality. But even the stuff that was withheld for national security was seen by the feds. They claim they looked at the dark files and still found nothing to charge. It is rare for the public to see the inner workings of an investigation like this, Usually, we only see what comes out in a trial. This is the Mueller report of the Epstein world. Will they find something the Bureau missed? We will have to wait and see. The main player is gone, so there will never be a final trial for him. Make sure to hit like if you want. More deep dives into these files, I'll keep you updated. See you in the next one.